Robocop is a film in which the reanimated remains of a brutally slain Detroit police officer are slapped inside of a robot body and instructed to shoot crime directly in the penis. Realised entirely using practical effects, almost everything about the original design of Robocop was changed to accommodate actor Peter Weller, when it dawned on filmmakers that he couldn't do, well, anything in costume. Something epitomised by the fact that the single most difficult shot to realise in the entire film is one of Robocop catching a set of keys, a moment that is literally 1 second of the film's runtime.
So, Karl, you know everything about Robocop.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't even fucking need the rest of the article to talk about this. Like, this is where the article is stuff people want. I don't even fucking need this shit, right? But it's just covering up, like, all the recording equipment we have here. Like, I know pretty much everything about the production of this film front to back. So what do you want to know?
What's going on? What is this article about?
Well, this article is about the fact it took an entire day to film a 1 second shot, which has since been regarded as the single most difficult shot in the entire film to realise, which is Robocop catching a set of keys. A clip we'd love to show, but apparently can't for reasons we'll get to at the end of this video. But the scene in question takes place during the introduction of Robocop, and it follows like one of my favourite scenes in the movie, which is the firing range scene again, which we'd love to show a clip of, but can't. And that's just Robocop just annihilating the high score on just like the firing range with the Auto 9. The coolest fucking gun ever. Nisha, have you seen Robocop? Well, I'm guessing you have, because you have to like watch it for all the videos it made about it.
So I've seen numerous clips, and I've watched the whole film. The first one, I ain't seen any more.
Well, that's
just the first one.
We only need to watch the first one, and I'm guessing you're familiar with the scene I'm talking about. I know the introduction of Robocop, where you have like that really great just establishing of Robocop as a character, where you just see hints of him as he's walking through the police station, and you have like the other police officers there trying to catch a glimpse of this fucking just autonomous crime-fighting robot that's going to replace them. Again, we can't show it, but I have it in my head, where he's like walking down a corridor, and it's like you have all these police officers in the way scrambling to get a view at him, like, basically, the audience standing, because that's like, you, the audience, also want to see Robocop. And you want to know, like, what does this look like? Who is this badass? Like, what does Alex Murphy look like now? It's like, fucking hell, he looks awesome. And I've talked at great length before about how Robocop might be one of the greatest practical effects ever, because just you fully 100% buy Robocop as a robot from second one. And that is due to a combination of the just phenomenal practical effects themselves, the sound design, which I think like deserves a nod in of itself, because it's like every single one of Robocop's steps is accompanied by that robotic like that's so good and so just it's excellent. And then you have just like Peter Weller's acting, which is why filming that scene was really hard.
So why would Peter Weller's acting make catching keys so difficult?
Well, that's because Peter Weller's acting as Robocop underwent a series of dramatic changes. Because initially, Peter Weller's idea for portraying Robocop was for him to be very live, very agile, very graceful in his movements, and he spent several months working with a professional mime coach who'd worked under Marcel Marceau, the greatest mime ever. And his thinking was that Robocop as a machine would move with absolute efficiency, which he very quickly realised was not possible when he first put the Robocop costume on, because the moment he put the costume on, he realised he could not move, because it was just too bulky, and all of the time he spent working with that mime coach was essentially worthless because he couldn't fucking move.
Oh no.
And according to Peter Weller, the moment he put the suit on, he legitimately thought this film's not going to get made, because it took, I think, upwards of 10 hours to get him into the costume for the first time, and he couldn't even walk.
10 hours to get in it?
10 hours to get into it. They got it down to about 4 or 5 hours by the end of production, but it took him 10 hours to get into the Robocop costume for the first time. And the special effects artist who created the costume, Bottin, was apparently sweating bullets, because he'd spent months making this costume, and it was perfectly fitted to Peter Weller's body, and then Peter Weller got into it and couldn't move. So they had to take out almost everything from the internals of the costume to give Peter Weller more freedom of movement, and even then, he still could not move with any sense of purpose, let alone grace. And he quickly realised, I need to go back to a drawing board in regards to how I'm approaching how Robocop will move. And his solution was to lean into the limitations of the suit, and instead of Robocop moving with inhumanly perfect precision, he decided that Robocop would move in a more deliberate fashion, which is where like the Robocop walk comes from. And I contend that Peter Weller's acting as Robocop in costume just is one of the best examples of just robotic acting ever. And that's like kind of an oxymoron. It's like it's good acting because he's acting robotic, but when I see any shot of Peter Weller walking as Robocop, I 100% buy Robocop as a machine. The closest parallel I can think is Terminator 1, where Arnold Schwarzenegger was similarly really dedicated to portraying the Terminator as a machine. And something he was especially conscious of during scenes of him being the Terminator was the fact that the Terminator is a machine and it will only move with efficiency in mind. And there's a really great shot in Terminator 1 of the Terminator just driving through an underground car park. And Arnold Schwarzenegger always makes sure to move his eyes before he moves his head. And it's just a shot of the Terminator, his eyes move and then his head does, with like the inhuman precision of a machine. And that's something he was super conscious of and made sure bled into his performance as the Terminator. And you just find yourself thinking, I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, it's the little details that really
sell,
make a character work.
It's those details that sell the Terminator as a machine and not just a big man. Peter Weller was the same way. Like I said, he took like mime classes to do this, and like when he realised that the mime shit would not work, he went back to a drawing board and came up with like an entirely new way for Robocop to move. But the pertinent piece of information we've mentioned is that it took 10 hours for Peter Weller to get into costume initially, and that the costume was very bulky and severely limited his movements, which included his ability to catch a set of keys.
So why couldn't he catch this set of keys?
Because the Robocop gloves were made of foam rubber. And whenever he tried to catch the keys would bounce out of his hand. And according to Peter Weller and people who worked on the film, getting that one shot, which is literally 1 second long, took all day.
Oh my God.
And keep in mind that it took him 10 hours to get into costume, because I think that was the very first shot they filmed of Robocop. It's not the first appearance of Robocop in the film, but films aren't always filmed in order. And that was the very first day of shooting with the Robocop costume. And it took 10 hours to get him into costume, and it took them the rest of the day to get that 1 second shot.
Can you imagine just being in that costume for hours and hours and hours and just getting one second shot all day?
You've got 1 second of usable footage. And it reminds me of that great Simpsons bit where it's like, oh, Millhouse, we need to do the Jiminy Jillikers scene again. It's like, we got it. It took 10 hours, but we got it. It's like, yeah, but we need to do it again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And it's like, so that's what acting is.
But we've got to do it from different angles. Again and again. And again and again and again.
And that's what it was for Peter Weller. Like he said, it was he was infuriated because it took him literally all day to get 1 second of footage. And he's like, look, we can't do this. So they took it back to the drawing board and they filmed like more Murphy stuff with him out of costume, and while they overhauled the design of the costume to make it easy to move around it. And even when they did that, he still was severely restricted in what he could do. For example, he couldn't get into a car. The literal poster for Robocop showed Robocop getting out of the car. I have this poster on my wall at home. The other one of him stood 1 foot in a police car, 1 foot out, just staring directly forward. That's one of the most iconic shots in the film. They couldn't do that because the costume was so bulky, Peter Weller could not get into a car.
Oh, God.
So they had to edit around that fact. And fun fact for the audience at home, if you watch the film, every shot of Robocop in a car, Peter Weller's not wearing pants. He's not wearing the bottom half of the costume. And the only example from film I can think of that sounds more frustrating than that moment for Peter Weller of all day to get 1 second of footage is the final fight scene from Legend of the Drunken Master, I think it is, a film I've talked about before, and widely considered one of the greatest fight scenes ever put to film. It took months to make, and according to Jackie Chan, they would get 4 seconds of usable footage every single day. Yeah, and I can't imagine how annoyed that'd be. Similar, I can only imagine it's a similar experience what Peter Weller felt after 10 hours of agonizing makeup, walking in and then spending another 7 hours in the costume under blazing lights to get a shot. And it's okay, so how much usable footage do we have? 1 second.
So Karl, I'm sure most people watching this channel know you love Robocop.
I adore Robocop. It is probably one of my favourite films of all time. And there were multiple videos on this channel of me gushing about various aspects of it. And most of those videos no longer exist. Every single one of our Robocop videos was flagged by MGM for copyright infringement. So we got copyright struck by a company who didn't even make the film. And even after I filed a counterclaim saying this is obvious fair use, MGM decided that the claim was not valid, so we had to take the videos down. So I wrote this article as a fuck you so we could talk about this, because it pissed me off so much.
It's daft. Like, I'd understand if we used clips and didn't, like, credit them or talk about Robocop, but we talk about Robocop and how good it is and say, this is a good scene, look at this scene. And
it's me praising the film. And then, like, you know, and it's for the as well. It's fair use. It's the most obvious example of fair use because it's for commentary and critique and discussion and education.
We should just say we should say like this happens in this scene. We show the scene.
It's the literal definition of fair use, and MGM don't seem to think so. So every Robocop video we've made has been taken down so we could take out all the Robocop.
Yay.
So I wrote this article so we'd have an excuse to talk about that because it annoys me so much. Because we just have like a group chat on Facebook, don't we, about like all the stuff related to the channel.
Yeah.
And just over the course of a week, you just saw me screenshotting the copyright claim notices I got
for
each and every Robocop video we've made. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's happened again, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll file a counterclaim because it's fair use. And then just 2 days later, MGM have reviewed your claim and they still think their claim is valid. So they're going to take 100% of the income you make from your Robocop video. So thanks.
Great.
Just wanted to talk about Robocop, but I'm not allowed.
Is it a crime to like something so much?
It is.
Fuck's sake.
So that's the thing as well. I'm guessing there's some people watching this video who've like, haven't you talked about this before? No, we haven't, because that video doesn't exist anymore because we can't fucking monetize it. Because I love Robocop too much. I like it. No, MGM. You don't even own the movie. I do. I bought the Blu-ray.
That makes it worse.
That's what pisses me off the most about it. It's that MGM did not make the movie.
but yet they want all the money. They you know, it's fair for them to take all the money.